There's a small window every day, maybe 2 or 3 of them, when the dog in your living room knows what is about to happen before you do. They have read the room. They have read your face. They have made a call. By the time you reach for your keys, or the leash, or the kitchen drawer, the decision on their end is already finished. You might notice the soft thump of a tail or a head that lifts a half-second too early. What you are not seeing is the work that came before that, the slow, careful, unblinking study. Most owners think of this look as affection. The dog watches you because the dog loves you. That part isn't wrong. It's a fraction of what's actually happening behind those eyes. A dog watching you is not running on autopilot. They are not a furry security camera that sometimes wags. They are running an active, layered evaluation, and they are doing it constantly. Where you are looking, what you are paying attention to, what you can see from where you're standing, whether you know what they know, whether you are, in this exact moment, the kind of human who can be tested or the kind who can't. Researchers have spent more than 2 decades pulling that apart, in labs in Vienna, in Budapest, in Leipzig, and the picture they keep arriving at is the same one. Your dog is not a passive companion. Your dog is a quiet working analyst, and the data they are working with is you. In 2003, a team led by Josep Koll at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology in Leipzig ran a deceptively simple test. 12 pet dogs, a mix of Labradors, German Shepherds, German wire-haired pointers, and several mixed breeds, were brought into a room with a single piece of forbidden food on the floor. The experimenter said no, leave it, and then shifted into one of 5 states. Out of the room entirely, looking right at the dog with eyes wide open, back turned, eyes closed, or visibly distracted with another task. Then they waited. The dogs took less food when the human's eyes were open and on them. On average, they took about 1.8 of the 8 pieces in the eyes open condition. In the distracted, eyes closed, and back turned conditions, that number climbed to roughly 2.8 to 3.3 pieces. The strangest part was not how much they ate, it was how they walked. When the human was watching, the dogs that did approach the food took longer, more indirect routes. They sat more, they paused more, they moved like they had a plan. Read that again. Your dog was not just deciding whether to eat the cookie, your dog was deciding whether they could eat it without you noticing and choosing the path with the best odds. That alone is more than most owners realize. There is a layer under it that goes further. In 2017, Anais Catala and colleagues at the Clever Dog Lab in Vienna ran what's called a guesser-knower task with 16 pet dogs of different breeds. 2 human informants stood in the room. Both pointed at containers. Both behaved exactly the same way. The trick was the geometry. Based on where each human was physically standing, only one of them could actually see where the food had been hidden. The other had their view blocked by an obstacle. Both still pointed the same way. Both still said the same thing. The dogs had to figure out which human was the real, knower based purely on who could see what. 13 of the 16 dogs picked the knower on the very first trial, before any feedback, before any reward pattern, before there was anything to learn. The preference didn't even grow stronger across trials, which means the dogs were not figuring it out by trial and error. They walked in already running the calculation. Some dogs are not just watching where you look, they are tracking what you can actually see from where you're standing. They are doing geometry on you. Here is where the picture turns strange, because the obvious next thought is wrong. You would assume a dog that watches you closely is a dog that follows your lead. That is not always how it lands. In 2017, Charlotte Duranton and her team, also working out of the Clever Dog Lab in Vienna, tested 65 pet dogs on whether they would follow a human's gaze toward one of 2 containers. The variable that changed everything was tone. When the human glanced at the container silently, no eye contact with the dog, no name, no warm directed voice, nothing addressing the dog at all, the dogs picked the gazed-at container below chance. They actively avoided it. When the human added eye contact, said the dog's name, used that soft directed tone, the same dogs picked the gazed-at container above chance. Same gesture. 2 completely different reads. The interpretation the researchers offered is unsettling once you sit with it. A silent look, with no cue that the look is meant for the dog, can be read as something the human is interested in for themselves. So, the dog backs off. They are not being stubborn. They are not being defiant. They have decided that thing is yours. The look you thought was sharing was, in their head, claiming they had already decided who that gaze belonged to. This is where the dog stops looking like every other animal. Wolves do not do this. In a now classic study by Adam Miklosi and his team in Hungary, dogs and wolves that had been raised by humans from very early in life were both given solvable tasks: opening a bin, pulling a rope to retrieve food, and then the same tasks were quietly rigged to be impossible. The bin was secretly locked. The rope mechanism was disabled. The wolves kept fighting the object. They worked the problem with their teeth and their paws and their full body weight. In one of the conditions, only 2 of 7 wolves bothered to look at the human at all. The dogs gave up on the object far sooner. They turned. They held the human face in a long, deliberate gaze. They asked. Some researchers call this a kind of social shortcut, a hardwired tendency to treat the human face as a source of information when the world stops making sense. That single habit is the foundation underneath almost everything else your dog does with you. Place all of this back in your own house now. Not in a lab, not with a stranger experimenter, with you. In 2020, Orsolya Kiss and a team in Budapest worked with 27 dogs and their owners on a repeated retrieve task across 20 trials. In one condition, the owner sat and watched the dog work. In the other, the owner sat in the same chair and ignored the dog, eyes locked on a magazine. The retrieve itself was identical either way. When the owner was visibly watching, the dogs moved faster toward the toy. They looked at the owner for longer stretches. They offered the toy to the owner more often. The job was the same. The dog was not. The EEG data the team also collected suggested that the gap between those 2 versions of the dog was not a mood. It was a stable trait written into the individual animal. There is a version of your dog that exists when you are paying attention, and a version that exists when you are not. And your dog seems to know, with surprising precision, which one of you is in the room right now. That isn't performance. That is a relationship etched into how they move. This is also why the moment to pay attention is not when your dog is watching you. It is when the watching changes. A dog that always met your eyes and now looks past you. A dog that used to tilt their head when you said their name and now goes still. A dog that no longer lifts before the leash, no longer arrives in the kitchen at the same old trigger, no longer offers the toy when you walk in the door. Any one of those, on its own, proves nothing. People have rough days. Dogs have rough days. Veterinary behaviorists, though, treat persistent shifts in a dog's attentional habits, especially in older dogs, dogs in new environments, or dogs after a household change, as something worth a real conversation with a vet. The baseline is the watching. The signal is the drift. A dog that has stopped studying you is, in their quiet way, telling you something about themselves. Go back to that small window in the day, the one where the dog seemed to know what you were about to do before you did it yourself. That moment was not coincidence. It was not magic. It was the back end of an evaluation that started long before you reached for the keys. Your face, your eyes, your route through the kitchen, your tone, the geometry of the room. All of it filed, weighed, and decided on. The next time you catch your dog mid-stare, try not to look away first. Try to notice what they're noticing.